Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Blade Trinity, starring Wesley Snipes, Chris Christopherson, Dominic Purcell, Jessica Biel, and Ryan Reynolds, and directed by David S. Goyer. Now before I get into this review, I just have to say this. There's going to be a story in this review that might not have anything to do with the movie, but it does have something to do with the making of, behind the scenes thing, which I'll get into it. Let's get into the movie. The movie opens with a narration by Hannibal King, played by Ryan Reynolds, about Dracula, which was pretentious. And the next thing you know, we have a group of vampires in the Syrian desert, led by Danica Talos, played by, what the fuck are you doing here, Parker Posey, as well as her brother Ash and Jarkle Grimwood, played by WWE superstar Triple H, trying to awake Dracula, aka Drake, played by Prison Break's Dominic Purcell. That was a terrible way to open up the movie. And why the fuck is Parker Posey here? That's what I want to know. She's more known for comedies. Blade, played by Wesley Snipes, and Whistler, played briefly by Chris Christopherson, shows up again 5 minutes after the movie opens to the beginning, and they're both still very one note, including Blade, which I heard and this is the part I'm telling you earlier that I heard. In the behind the scenes, there was drama between Wesley Snipes and the director of the movie, David S. Goyer, who were apparently good friends until they made this movie together, about how David Goyer wanted to make a Night Stalkers movie with Blade, which we will get into, and Wesley Snipes wanted to make a third solo Blade movie. They ended up disagreeing and never spoke to one another since. It's kind of distasteful to make the movie's plot or the movie's the way how it is. Jessica Biel as Abigail, aka Whistler's daughter, has an introduction where she's trying to be a badass, which really, it's not working. Where she kills 5 or 6 vampires that are thugs with her foot blade and her arm blade is a little too much for me personally. Whistler's death was a pretty painful acted scene and just a terrible scene in general. Dr. Vance is a terrible character, and he says he's here to help, but not Blade, but the vampires like Danica and her group of vampires to kill out Blade until Hannibal King shows up to save Blade's life. Hannibal King is a light and funny character to the movie, whereas Blade is dark and very one-note. The Night Stalkers is introduced to Blade, and Blade doesn't approve because he wants to be on his own and hates them and hates working with them to fight off Dracula, or in this case they call him Drake for short. Now Drake, he's an awful villain for Blade because he was known as Dracula. Just call him fucking Dracula, not Drake. I also hate his slow motion scene, whereas everyone is walking quicker, whereas he's walking very slowly. Just horrible. Did a bunch of comedy stars show up and ruin Blade in his own adventures? Because that's what this is looking at, in my personal opinion. Am I the only one when Abigail wears her headphones while she's fighting, she can't pay attention or hear anything that surrounds her? It's just terrible. When Summerfield, played by Natasha Lyonne from American Pie, dies and kidnaps her daughter Zoe, and when Abigail sees Summerfield's body, Blade says, 3 times at least, use it. And I felt like, use what? That really annoyed me to death, quite frankly. Before the big battle begins, Hannibal King talks about like dicks and his ass cheeks and his ass in general, and I'm like, is this a fucking comedy? Just the worst. I'm not a big fan of those raunchy R-rated humor kind of things, so that's where it kind of threw me off at that point. Blade's battle with Drake is so stupid that Drake turns into something that looks like a devil with a bad puppet creation. It's just so retarded. I'm just gonna get to the rating now. I'll give the movie a 3.7 out of 10. This is probably the worst of the Blade series, and Blade is a one-note character. They need to make a Night Stalkers movie without Blade. I'm through with Blade as far as I'm concerned. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for Blade, and I will be back next week for Marvel with Howard the Duck. And until next time, it's open season for all sucky.